Hi everybody, welcome to Fossil Hunting and Collecting with Chris. This is a place that I've been wanting to show you for a long time. I have some footage that I had gotten quite a while back collecting Eurypterids up at the Ridgemont Quarry in Canada. It was a trip that we made to Canada where we had gone to a quarry where we could actually collect Eurypterids. The quarry was under the ownership of a company. This company let us come in on certain specific days. We go in there by their permission. We had some very stringent rules that we had to follow. We had to have steel-toed boots. They actually came out with magnets to check to make sure our boots were steel-toed. They had, we needed helmets and other safety gear in order to be allowed in to collect. But on those days that we were allowed to go in, oh, was it worth it? They were collecting the material above the Silurian layer, some Devonian rock that was being used as aggregate, used to make roads and stuff like that. The stuff underneath, the Silurian stuff, was not quite as good for making roads, but it was really good for finding the exquisitely rare Eurypterids, those arthropods that look a lot like modern-day scorpions. And that's not a coincidence. They actually are the ancestors of what led to our land scorpions. They were giant creatures of the sea. Some of them got more than 2 meters long, so they were actually really humongous and threatening looking creatures that would have been up along the shorelines of our ancient water. I'm sure you're glad that we're not swimming with Eurypterids now. The tails, by the way, are thought not to be poisonous the way scorpions are nowadays. They didn't need to be. They were the giant top predators of their time. So we're going to go in to take a look at this quarry. I was hoping to get us a lot more footage of this. Unfortunately, I've not been able to get back there. There was some temporary border closings because of the COVID epidemic. And afterwards, we found out the quarry has since changed hands. And I don't know if anybody from our group or any other group has established any relationship with the new owners that may or may not allow collecting to go on. I'm hoping to find out more about this. Well, this film I had been putting off because I've been hoping to get back there. Not sure I'm going to be able to get back there anytime soon, so I'm going to show you what I do have because it's quite a lot of really nice fossil hunting, quite a lot of really spectacular finds. By myself, I made a couple of good finds, and my group made a couple of really nice finds, and we'd like to show you them. I'm hoping that this place and others like it will go on, but it is getting exceedingly rare now to find places where collectors can go and look for Eurypterids. Also, stick around. At the end of this film, I'm going to be showing some fossils that people sent in. Last video, my best fossil finds of the year, I had asked people to send in videos of their best finds of the year, and got some responses. So let's take a look at that. I'll be showing that and also a little excursion further into Canada at the end of this video. So let's take a look. Oh, and as usual, you know the drill. I'm going to ask you to please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Subscribing doesn't cost anything. It just makes fossil hunting and collecting videos pop up more often in the YouTube feed. Let's take a look at these Eurypterids now. If you take a look at the map, there's actually a very thin little section where the just perfect material outcrops to find Eurypterids and things of this nature. These are from the Silurian. In this particular exposure, the Bertie Formation has this shallow, salty type of sea that was preserved, which was just the right environment for the Eurypterids. As you can see on the map, it's not a whole lot of it, and one of the reasons why they're so rare is there's not a lot of exposures. Most of the exposures are either on private property or just plain not available for people to collect in. There's a few places where you can find these. We are really fortunate that the people at Ridgemont have allowed us to collect at this site. So here we are getting ready for a day of collecting. In this quarry, they're very stringent about the safety and other regulations. We have to wear the right type of gear. They will actually inspect that. We have to sign to make sure it will behave properly. And I hope all fossil collectors know that you always must follow the rules, because if you don't, you not only ruin it for yourself, but you could ruin it for everybody. So please always be conscious of that when we're lucky enough to be invited into a collecting site. We are at the Ridgemont Quarry in Canada, in Port Erie, just a little bit past the actual border. The rocks we are digging are very hard. Anything really good here? We mostly find bits and pieces. So far, found the Eurypterid head. So I've got a head, got an arm and part of a tail. Usually on these trips, maybe we go with 30 people, 3 people on Eurypterid, and so far there's been no full Eurypterids found. This particular part of the quarry is not as good as where we were last time, but this time they're blasting over where the good fossils are. We actually had to move a couple of times so they could do some blasting. They clear us out, move us over, and now we're continuing afterwards. It is a very crystalline shale. It's very very hard to break. And let's see if I have some piece cracked already over here. Let's see if I can get it up. Can't really see it in this light, but the other half of that tail that I pulled out is on the other side of this rock. Now, it normally doesn't come up this easy. This is already cracked. We always take a look at all different sides. The bottom, this one will probably be worth splitting a little bit more. The piece with the tail is over here, and I'm going to carefully pull that out. Good stuff. Okay. Here Fred has found a Phylocarid. A Phylocarid is a large prehistoric shrimp ancestor. John, the guy with the saw, offered to cut it out for him, so Fred gets to go home with this really awesome giant shrimp. Thank you to John for bringing this rock saw and cutting it out. And look at this. I've had some really good luck too. These are both halves of a Eurypterid. The Eurypterid is pretty well intact. There's just a little piece of the tail that's not attached, but that's not bad. It all could possibly come together. The head is also partly under the rock. It looks like everything's there, but the rock just didn't split evenly, and a little bit of, well, a lot of really careful fossil prepping could probably make this into a really beautiful display piece. So very happy with this find, and the day is still young.
Right? Don't just toss the rocks randomly, because there are things that are good. Grab some. They're very hard to see. That is a shrimp. So that's the tail of the shrimp. Right? And then the body segment of it. I mean, very faint compared to the rock. So if you look at it, this has actually been coated with a little bit of polyvinyl acetate. Okay. But that's a shrimp. You can see the backbone in it. You can see the eye.
Yeah.
Right?
It looks like one of those
ghost shrimps.
Yeah.
Right? This is actually a cephalopod. That's what the cephalopods here look like. They look like a clam, but it's actually a cephalopod. This is probably the rarest thing in the box. That's a gastropod, right? But it's the only one that I know that's ever been found here.
Right. That's the one you said I could have for $20, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
I tell it.
Right?
It's a prize. If you don't find anything today, you get a prize.
So they got big, right? We have evidence of pieces that were here that would suggest there were Eurypterids probably in the 3 to 4 foot length here. Well, nobody's actually found one yet. This
it's dark. It's dark, so I didn't know.
that's part of the body segment. So
I'm in a good pair.
like it's from right about there. See, if you look at that, that's about where it was.
Great, thank you.
Okay. This is from a different kind of Eurypterid that's here. As far as you know, nobody has found a complete one. That's called a carcinoma, right? But it has a very cyclical tail, right? And the body segment, the tail's attached to it. Looks a little different. These are very triangular. That's some stuff from the next where you're going from. That's from that box there's from Lake Simcoe. About half the box was found in the last 2 weeks.
This is from where?
Lake Simcoe, it's Ridgemont, Ontario. It's a place called James Quarry.
Is that near here?
About 3.5 hours.
That's the place this guy was telling me about.
Yeah.
Remember I told you I had a piece from?
Yes.
I've got this, and this. But it's even bigger. It's
Yeah, I've got
probably that
I've
big
got
across.
a piece.
But that's all I've got. It's just this little piece.
I've got a piece from an isotelus that would probably be the isotelus.
Yeah. That's all I've got. It's just that corner there, a piece of the.
So if you start finding heads and things, that's a good sign because that means that's a tergite. So that's one of the segments across the back portion of Eurypterid, right? If all I'm finding is those, I'm probably going to move on and go somewhere else. But I mean, you need to look for an hour or so to get a pattern, right?
Now, could you repeat that part about like follows like?
Yeah. The theory is somewhere about that direction I'm pointing there is the direction of the current. On most of the Eurypterids, when I find them, if I have a compass with me, I mark the direction of north. So somebody will find one, right? But not necessarily any one individual. Everybody will find parts, but you won't find them. And I got lucky. The first time I ever came here, I got a plate from Rio. I was hooked. If I had not found anything that first day, I would never have come back because I had other sites. We found things all the time, right? So, you will find something. Oh, for sure. I go to Penn-Dixie if I don't find 30 or 40 complete trilobites. We excavate downward layers, take our rocks off, all that kind of stuff. If I don't find 30 to 40 complete ones, forget it. I hate the ones that kids in there because when I go to Penn-Dixie, I'm looking for plates. Lots of them. What? Plates of trilobites. This is the bottom of a dome, right? You have the dip.
I'm sorry, but how do you define a dome? Is it just a depression? Or?
Just a depression. Okay. Right?
So would this be a good spot to start?
It's as good as any. It's as good as any. Right? Yeah.
Here's the X, I see it.
Gloves on and get in and make sure you've got safety glasses or something. No, it's cracked. It's okay. It's all cracked. It's okay, man. That's fine. Instead of coming up as a slant.
Which piece is breaking the fossil?
This.
That? Well, that's okay. That piece is not important. Here we have Tom has found a Eurypterid, his second really good find today. This is how we get them out. A lot of hard work. The Eurypterid is about 430 million years old. This is a giant sea scorpion.
Slightly older than I am.
Slightly older than Tom.
It's missing the head and the tail.
Yep. Tom is working around because when we break it out, we don't want the slab and some fossils on the break. We want to try and get the whole thing, that which is left of the fossil. Not easy work, but it's fun. It's a treasure hunt.
It's fun.
We're in the Ridgemont Quarry, one of the last places where you can actually find Eurypterids.
What do you think, Chris? It's too soon to go at it.
I would keep breaking into over here. Get rid of all this. Go down deeper here. Try and get all this out too, because the more you get, the more likely you'll be able to undercut that without breaking it.
Says you.
If you don't take out the overburden and the side burden, then your chances are less than. At least I would guess. I'm not the one with the Eurypterids to lose though, so. All right, thank you very much, Tom. We will join you later when you have this out. Well, thank you very much to John. Tom was able to get out the Eurypterid. John is an expert not only of this particular site, but of many other fossils in the region, and he usually brings us giant rock saw, and he has been very generous to help people out when they do make a great discovery. Thank you, John. And John also has a great sense of humor. He called over Ray to show him, "Hey Ray, look at these fossils on this slab. All these Eurypterids and cephalopods." So Ray comes running over, and he had drawn these on the slab with a magic marker. We were jokingly calling these a Moroccan fossil plate.
If you look up Royal Ontario Museum Eurypterid Ridgemont Quarry, there is a paper, and it's on how the outside coat of the exoskeleton ended up becoming a polymer.
Okay.
And they're speculating because the lagoon was so alkaline that a reaction happened when it was decaying and it polymerized. That's what that brown film is.
So that's actually a fossil of the exoskeleton.
Yeah, it's a replacement fossil, but it was turned into a peptide polymer.
Well, I'm going to wrap it in saran wrap, and I'll do my best to preserve that son of a gun.
Yeah.
Please.
But there's a Royal Ontario Museum, Ridgemont Quarry. Look up polymer, and there's a paper, about a 3-page paper. It will tell you what the composition of it is. Somebody did the analysis and all that stuff.
Well, I got that, and I got a Eurypterid. I got a follow carrot, so
You've had a good day.
I'm happy.
You've had a good day.
All right, so Tom, are you happy with the partial excavation of your trilobite there?
I am not a trilobite. It's a
Eurypterid.
Eurypterid.
He was
Where is it?
Where is it?
Oh God. I don't want to see a grown man cry.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
What'd you guys dig up over there?
Same as that. We're the twin of that.
So by around lunchtime, there's been another great find in this quarry. A guy and his son from Massachusetts who came all the way out here found a pocket with a bunch of partial
one even mostly complete Eurypterid. Four total Eurypterids in this pocket. So that is an amazing find. This is really turning into an exceptional day. Oh, and what have I been up to? I found some of these really nice plant or algae.
Blob sort of got massed together.
This one.
Yeah, that's Inicalis.
This one too, this blobby thing.
Yeah, that's what all that is. There's a lot, this whole section here had a lot of algae.
And this is just plant pieces or?
No, these are
No, that's Those are just broken up bits, and they're all about the same size. They be from different Eurypterids. They just washed in
Here's
together.
a good chance of reconstructing a single one.
Well, I have actually done that for
Yeah?
people.
Yeah.
I make them composites because the typical Eurypterid is 6 inches long.
So this is turning out to be a great day. Another one of our group has just made a really spectacular Eurypterid find. Take a look at this one. And I've got two partials now. Looks like two different creatures, but both about the same size on one slab. All right, time for a group picture. This has been another great day of fossil collecting. Before I wrap it up, I'll show you some of the really great finds that I've found at this quarry. So let's take a look at some of the things that I've found. Now, I've been there about 3 or 4 times total, so this is not all from one day. You might recognize this one.
Here's that nice double partial that I found. 2 different Eurypterids, part of each on that one slab.
Eurypterid tail with another arm, appendage, petal, head, and all the things on the same plate from this date. But I also have quite a few other things. I have this, which may be one of my best Eurypterids.
So here it is, one of the best Eurypterids I've ever found. This was up at the Ridgemont Quarry. And as you can see, we see it really well preserved, a lot of details. We're looking at the underside now. Tail is detached. The tail is actually on a separate rock. And like a dummy, I did not pack the tail and the Eurypterid together, so now I'm not sure where I put the tail. But much like this two-sided cephalon and thorax, there is also a tail section on another rock that I have yet to figure out where I packed it away. It's detached, but would have been on another rock right down here. So here I have this very big Eurypterid. A lot of really nice detail from the underside here. A lot of really nice detail from the head. Looks a little bit crushed. I'm not sure if that could be the cause of death. The head seems to have a little bit of damage on it. Don't know if that happened while alive or as the rock was compressing over time. You can see there's some of that brown material. That's the unusual way that the actual shell forms sort of a natural polymer. Malcolm had mentioned that on the trip that we were on. And what's really amazing is in between the head and the lower portion of the head, inside was an internal cast of the Eurypterid. It didn't go quite as far. We just see a head, some of the thorax section, none of the appendages, but we do see a very fragile two-sided cast of the original Eurypterid. This was in between this top section and in between the bottom section. So wedged right in between there was this incredible, really well preserved Eurypterid. So not a complete because the tail is detached. I'm going to have to find out what I did with the tail. It's probably not too far from the rest of this Eurypterid, but I packed it somewhere when I was unable to find it this morning. So So that would definitely be my best find at the Ridgemont Quarry. Do have a couple of other really nice things to show you. Also, in addition to the things that I found, I also have 2 items out here that I had purchased at the Petrified Creatures Museum back when that was still a thing. So let's take a closer look at some of these awesome Eurypterids and other fossils from Ridgemont in Canada. So here is a close-up look of the Eurypterid that I had found on this visit. It's detached, the tail is broken off, but it's clean break. We can add that right back on. I do have a little bit of a dilemma with the head though. As you can see, there is some material left over here that looks like I should prop it up. But even though that's covering the head, there is actually some parts of appendage on that. So if I go ahead and loosen that, I'm actually destroying some of the other material that's part of this Eurypterid. And I want to be very conservative. I want to preserve as much as possible. So I'm going to do this very carefully. I might even ask an expert what the best thing to do is here, because I don't want to remove anything that is really a nice detailed part of this Eurypterid. So I might have to ask for some help on this one. It looks though, if I drill it, eventually I might be able to find the limb over here with the paddle, maybe even the other paddle on the other side's buried in here. Don't really know yet. So this one is a nice, don't crop it in the field, which I didn't. Don't crop it in a rush. Make sure you know what you're doing. This one I'm going to have to take my time with, but it might be a nearly complete Eurypterid. Let's take a look at the other half. So now we're looking at the other half of the Eurypterid, and as you can see, part of the head is missing where it's stuck on the other side. We can see that paddle that looks like it's probably going to be underneath over here if I drill this out a little bit. You can see some of the appendages that will probably clean up nicely. The tail looks very fine, very clean. This one still has a lot of the natural salt on it that you have to clean off, but once again, I'm going to do it very delicately and carefully. But this is a very nice Eurypterid. Hopefully it'll be more complete when I'm done. These 2 Eurypterids, this really big one that is coated with some type of preservative, and this other small one with the letter A on it, were both purchased at the Petrified Creatures Museum back when it was in business. I mentioned this in one of my other videos. I believe it was Up the Creek Part 2, did a little homage to the now defunct Petrified Creatures Museum. But both of these I purchased from John Millet's when he was still around and when the Petrified Creatures Museum was there. And I probably didn't pay too much. Eurypterids have gone up a lot in value since I bought them. Both of these each would have been well less than $100. I would not have been able to have purchased them back then. Now a decent Eurypterid could go for $1,000, so I guess it turned out to be a good investment, but a really beautiful sample. I like this one. It stands up by itself. And the reason why it has a letter A on it is because I have used this at the Science Olympiad fossil events. This was one of the samples that the students had to identify when doing the fossils competition. So, came into good use as well as being a really nice little Eurypterid. And speaking of little Eurypterids, here's a tiny one. This one, it's not really well preserved. It's also very small. I probably should have put a coin down next to it so you could see. But is a tiny Eurypterid, a baby, or maybe a small species. I'm not sure. And here's a nice Eurypterid head. Looks like Euripides. Unfortunately, no more of it was found other than just the head. And this one was a gift. A friend in the New York Paleontological Society who lives in Western New York goes there fairly often, goes to Canada to get these fairly often, and gave me some Eurypterid heads and tails for my classroom. So thank you very much. And goes to good use. I love to show this to my kids, my students. So thank you very much. On this piece, we're seeing some algae. Now I'm not sure, or let me say plants. There's a couple of different varieties that could be. By the way, a friend of the Paleo Society and a friend had also put out a book that tells a bit about the setting here and what type of fossils you may find. So if you do see this, if you do go on one of these trips to the area, you might want to look for this field guide. And this one has a plate that looks kind of like a whale's tail. Now, I've been told by an expert out in the field while we were collecting that this may be a sign of sexual dimorphism. Basically, the males and the females had slightly different structures. I think this structure had to do with female Eurypterids. I could be wrong, and I'm not sure if that expert is right, but I think the expert is pretty good on various other things. So that's my understanding of this very odd whale tail shaped plate from a Eurypterid. So over here, we're looking at a sample of something called Inocolus. It was, I believe, a calcareous algae that lived in the same environment that these Eurypterids were living in. In this case, it formed sort of a weak point in the rock, so it popped out and you get a really nice two-sided view of this algae. So this is one of the plant-like forms of life that was living in this region, in this shallow, salty sea, back around 440 or so million years ago. Inocolus is also known as Manitobia because it is found in that region. So this is that Silurian cephalopod, the Gumphoceras. I've actually found two of these. One of them, just like the tail of that Eurypterid, I'm looking for in my other items. So here's a very nice example of this very unusual body form of a cephalopod from the Silurian. And here's the other side of the Gumphoceras. You can see it's on this large slab where we had lots of algae. I can't say positively that there's any Cooksonia on here. I really want to find Cooksonia. I'm not sure that's it. But there's our Gumphoceras. And on this piece of Eurypterid, you can see that really unusual preservation. The original shell turned into this tissue-like polymer. It leaves a nice imprint on both sides of the rock, but you also get this very thin tissue-like remnant of the shell inside the fossil. And here one piece is kind of pulled out and flapped overwards. So you can actually just see this, like this very tiny tissue. You can see this very delicate tissue-like material that was the original shell. And this is all that's left of it now.
So this was our adventure at the Ridgemont Quarry. There's two more things that I'd like to show you though. Some of us were able to go on afterwards to another site up in northern Canada, or at least a few hundred miles north of where this was, and we made a couple of other nice finds. I'll be able to show you pictures of our adventures. No film, unfortunately, because this was before I was making YouTube films, but they found some really great creatures up there, particularly trilobites. Also, thank you to my viewers. I've had a couple of people send in photos, and I'd like to go ahead at the end of this to show some photos sent in.
So after finishing up at Ridgemont, some of us were able to go the next day to another place in Canada. This is up near Lake Simcoe, which is pretty far north in Canada, about maybe 200 miles north of where we were. So we were up there with a few people who were able to go on, and we made some really nice finds. The accommodations were a little bit sketchy, as you can see, but you know, when you're this far north and away from civilization, you gotta go with what you can go with. It's better than sleeping outside. This is Dick's Quarry, which is up near Lake Simcoe. So my friend Ray found a really awesome trilobite. Actually, more than one really nice trilobite. And my friend Mike as well also found a head of a very large Isotelus. So now, thank you very much to Derek for sending in some pictures of a trilobite that he had found in Canada recently. And he also was very smart in the way he was prepared. He had a friend who is a paleontologist and had a very professional job done in restoring this trilobite. Derek also pointed out that this one has an indentation in its head indicating an injury. And it's possible that that might have been what killed this trilobite. It is a complete one, not a molt.
Snowing again. Thank you, everybody. I hope you enjoyed Eurypterids of Ridgemont. Hope you learned a lot. Hope you got to see some nice fossils. I'm hoping that someday we can get back there again, that it'll be available for fossil collecting. And thank you so much for our viewers. Thank you for sending in photographs. I think I might make this a regular thing now. If you do send me photographs and give me permission to put them in there, I'll put them in my videos. Thank you. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to smash the subscribe button if you like this and like fossil videos on YouTube. Thank you so much. Have a great day.